welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. We are here on Memorial Day. We apologize for the late recording. It's been a hell of a last kind of week for us as a collective group. But we're going to go over some dynasty buys post-NFL draft and free agency. Some players we're looking to pick up in there. Get it right up to the mic when you're cracking it if you're going to do it after the show starts.
I didn't want it like splashing everywhere and get all over my keyboard and destroying this piece of shit laptop.
You need to replace it anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
So as always, we are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, guys. Before we get into the Dynasty Buy episode, though, we got some social media stuff to cover here. Thank you so much to everyone who checked out the latest YouTube episode. We broke 100 views for the first time on a non-live streamed episode.
Thank you, guys. That is awesome to see. Something that we've kind of been driving towards. So shout out to you for getting us in the public eye and doing some extra work there. But to everyone that listened, thank you. To everybody that's new, welcome.
Yep, so please check us out on YouTube at Beer Fueled Fantasy Football is the channel. You can subscribe there. If you got any questions for the episodes, that's probably one of the easiest places for us to answer questions. So if you want to jump on there and ask us any questions you see in the episode, do it there. It's a great place for us to have conversations about that. And if you can like the video, we appreciate that as well.
And also hit that subscribe button so you can get all the updates for us in every episode. I wanted to jump in on this. I was super excited.
You really struggled with that.
You know, words are tough at 9 o'clock at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Time is tough also.
Time is
apparently.
also tough. So
It's a struggle for Dan this
it's
morning.
always a struggle for Dan.
So that's the big news there on YouTube. As always, if you can follow us anywhere else, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those are going to be either Beer Fueled FF or Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Individually, I'm at Nick Sparts. To my left, rocking the old school Beer Fueled Fantasy shirt.
No longer available for purchase, I don't think. And the new school Beer Field Fantasy hat. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's.
And across the table from me, struggling with what time of day it is right now, is Dan Thury.
It's 10:30 at night. I'm at 30 BFF. We actually still have our old school shirts for sale.
Not a ton of them.
Not
We
a
got
Not
few.
a lot though,
No.
but we do have some
Cool.
left.
But if you want a throwback, it's an option, like an old powder blue.
They're going to be worth
jersey.
something someday.
I'm just going to lean this back so you can see the whole thing. All right, cool. There's your sneak peek. I need to be able to see now.
They're going to be worth something someday because we don't have a lot of them.
Yeah, they're rare. OGs.
It was what, like
The OGs.
it was 15 total were printed, or
Yeah,
something like
12.
that. 12.
12 total.
Okay. So anything else we want to cover on that before we get into the Listener Dynasty League?
Nope, not
Okay.
there.
So we are going to start a Listener Dynasty League here, and there will be 3 ways for you if you to get into this if you want to submit. Let's get
Sorry,
the hype going.
I felt like that deserves some hype.
That
does.
deserves
That
some hype.
deserved the hype horn.
That's the hype
right.
train.
So here's the plan for the Listener League. First, we're going to go over how you can throw your name into the hat, and then we'll go over some of the league plans for the league rules. If you want
This is sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. This is a Dynasty Listener League. There will be a redraft one coming in July. Just
Yes.
want to differentiate.
Because we love you guys and we want you all to be a part of this community.
And to be a consistent participant with us. So we're doing a Dynasty League early. We'll have a redraft league though if you don't want that type of commitment announced later in the summer.
So we're probably going to try to kick off this Dynasty League probably late June. Dan and I are going to a wedding in Minnesota in the 3rd weekend of June, so we'll probably try to start this the weekend after. The plan is for it to be a slow draft, so we won't all have to try to meet up at the same time. For keeping that in mind, if you want to try to get in on this Dynasty League, you can do it one of 3 ways. All are going to require you to take a screenshot, so figure out how to do that on your computer.
Or smartphone.
And email the inbox beerfueledfantasy@gmail.com. So 3 ways you can do it. A screenshot of you subscribed and leaving a review for us on iTunes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or liked us on Facebook. You can get up to 3 submissions each. And each one will be a random drawing for you to get into the Listener Dynasty League.
Indeed. Does Twitter DMs work for that too?
You can also Twitter DM it. It's easier for me to organize for email, though, so I would prefer you email the show, because then I can just send it all straight to
So
Google
make
Drive.
Nick's life hell and send it all to the DM.
Send it on Twitter at BeerfieldFF.
Yes. But these are 3 social media platforms we're trying to drive right now, whether it be our iTunes rating and getting more subscribers there to get us higher up the search results, getting our YouTube subscriber count up, or get more likes on Facebook, because that's lagging significantly behind our Twitter following. So if you guys can just do something for us there, show that you're a little bit committed to the show, we will be happy to get you into the Listener League. As of current plans here, we'll probably try to keep that open for a week or 2, so you'll hear that on the next couple episodes.
Roster format.
Roster format is going to be Superflex.
Boom.
So it'll be one standard flex, one super flex position. I think we're going to do half PPR and then full point PPR for tight ends.
So super flex tight end premium. We're expanding here.
Yeah, so it is going to be a little bit more complicated than your standard dynasty league, but it should be fun. Start 2 running backs, start 3 receivers. That's what I think I'm going to go with.
You're going to add punters to this league.
We will have no punters.
I want a dynasty punter league.
Well, then you can start that league next year.
No thanks.
So if you guys are interested in this type of league format, I'm not sure a number of players yet. We'll see what kind of demand there is. It'll be somewhere between 12 and 16. There will be divisions, and we'll in playoff format will be either 4 or 6. Will depend on the league size. We'll get that figured out at that time. So if you guys have any other questions for us, feel free to either email or DM us on Twitter. We'll hammer out more of the details as the league gets filled out as well, and people can kind of get their say in. It will be standard things though, like fab, everything else like that for you guys.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for that? Please feel free to leave comments on the YouTube channel, DM us, email. Other than that, let's move on to some beer fuel. Beer fuel. And I think that's the longest we've gone before getting to beer fuel in an episode before.
It's been a while. It's been a while. We were, there's only 6 minutes. It's not too bad.
Usually they're on about 2.
Yep.
All right, so we have Smash and Grab IPA by Legal Draft Brewing. They're out of Arlington, Texas. It is a single malt, single hopped IPA with Citra hops coming in at 6.1%. Hopper was kind enough to grab this when he just got back here from Texas.
Yep, at midnight on Saturday, or really, really early Sunday morning, actually, is when we got back. So spent the last week down there. It was a heck of a time. I was personally victimized by Dirty Sixth in Austin, and I got taken for a ride by a guy we'll refer to as Heroin Billy. $1 for a peso exchange, not necessarily the best.
No, that's a pretty poor exchange rate.
Yep.
But you got a peso now.
I do have a peso now.
Right, you should frame it.
Post it up on the board.
I'm going to put it in a shadow box. We'll do something to commemorate Heroin Billy.
All right, we'll figure out something there. Look for that on the wall someday in the future. All right, let's get to some news. News. All right, so the big bad news is we do have a couple ACL tears coming in training or OTAs. The big one being Hunter Henry.
He definitely deserves that.
He deserves he gets like 6 of them.
Yeah, he was.
I'm kidding.
We'll abbreviate it. Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
So he was poised to be a breakout candidate this year. It was his 3rd year in the NFL. Antonio Gates was finally gone. He was looking to be the number 2 target and the number 1 red zone target on that offense. And now we're going to lose him with an ACL tear. Projection out for year 4 and beyond, so 2019. I think he should be fine, but it sucks that you're losing a year of production out of him.
You are. Virgil Green is currently the in-house backup there, but he's more of a blocking tight end. I think the most obvious answer is Antonio Gates has not retired yet, so they probably return him for another season. We'll see if that happens.
The only other option I spotted was Kobe Fleener.
Yeah, Kobe Fleener's also out there who would be a good plug-and-play option there. But something to keep in mind towards the end of this year, we've seen it with David Johnson. Recency bias is a real thing. You're going to have a year without Hunter Henry, so he's a very, very, very intriguing buy coming off of this injury because of recency bias. They're going to, when you get into the season, when things start to happen, people are going to forget about Hunter Henry. So,
or if a contender owns him and they need another player to kind of fill out their roster to make a championship run, they may be willing to part with him for cheap.
Yep. And there's a guy we'll talk about on Wednesday that I think could be a perfect flip candidate for that.
But also to mention, this happened early on in the offseason, which means there's a lot of time for the Chargers to find their replacement. It may not be Virgil Green. It may not be Antonio Gates. They're going to have time to figure out what they want to do, but it also gives us time as owners of Hunter Henry to figure out what we want to do. Don't rush into either moving him. Don't rush into trying to buy his replacement if you think you're contending. Wait till the season. Wait to see what the Chargers do with the position, and don't just go, too crazy with it. We've seen trades. I've been offered ridiculous trades for Henry because I own him in the league. We've seen it throughout Twitter. People selling him pretty low or trying to buy somewhat of a replacement, and then they lose value there.
Yeah, this would be a buy time, not a sell time for Henry.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's always.
Absolutely.
All right. Bills coach Sean McDermott says Zay Jones underwent knee surgery last week and will miss the rest of the offseason program up until probably late training camp.
I think. I don't know. Zay Jones had a kind of terrible rookie season. You were hoping for a bounce back. Still could happen. He's familiar with the offense. They didn't change coordinators or anything like that, so I don't worry too much about him coming in late. Could have been valuable with especially with AJ McCarron and them having a new quarterback because reps matter, but just keep an eye on it for now.
That's my concern is he's going to miss value time with not just McCarron, but with Josh Allen developing that chemistry and the fact that this receiving core is a fucking clusterfuck. He could come back and be the number 2 right away.
Well, they don't really have anybody.
They don't really have anybody that's there.
For my money that can. I mean, It's Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones, and nothing. And Zay Jones still kind of qualifies as nothing.
Until he proves otherwise. So Packers then go on and sign Mercedes Lewis, formerly of the Jaguars.
Don't care.
I mean, it might hurt Jimmy Graham a little bit because Lewis is probably going to catch a few touchdowns.
I mean, they did this when they brought in Martellus Bennett. They brought in Lance Kendricks as the backup hype around those two. Kendricks was nothing. You bring in Jimmy Graham. You bring in a type of player like Jimmy Graham. You have a specific reason for him, and you have this specific role. Mercedes Lewis is just another piece there. I don't see anything. There's no fantasy relevance there.
No, he's not fantasy relevant. I'm saying he hurts Jimmy Graham. Just because he's gonna catch a few touchdowns.
I don't see how he hurts him.
Not much. I don't think he hurts Jimmy Graham much at all.
So I mean, just anybody who might take red zone targets. Which if Mercedes Lewis can do anything, and that's probably the only thing he can do besides block is catch touchdowns.
That might be why he's there. Is just to block. He may not see reps at all.
He will primarily be there to block, but he is going to catch 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Let's not forget that Kendricks is there also. Does Lewis even make the?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, I brought up Kendricks with the whole. When they brought in Martellus Bennett, they also brought in Lance Kendricks.
And Richard Rodgers was also stealing from Bennett too. So Rodgers is going to go and use multiple tight ends if they're available to him. He doesn't.
I already don't like Jimmy Graham in Green Bay anyway. That's well documented. So.
This just takes the luster off even more.
Yeah. Not that there was much there for me in the first place.
and I'm not saying it's a big hit. It's just another one it's another kind of
I get
ding.
It. He's a name that, that used to be something. So
also, for those of you on YouTube, I apologize. We do all have full-time jobs, and I happen to be on call for mine. So if you see me walking in and out and blocking the camera on the YouTube channel, that's why.
Yep. You'll hear the audio keep going, though. We're going to try to roll with it.
We roll through it. This is about a once-a-month thing.
All right. Raiders acquire quarterback Christian Hackenberg from the Jets in exchange for a 2019 conditional 7th-round pick.
I don't think he's even worth that.
I mostly included this for the hilarity factor.
How did they get a 7th-round pick for him?
Conditional 7th round.
Still, how did you get a draft pick for him?
How do you get?
How is it anything?
He's worth less than a bag of potato chips.
Maybe draft pick?
Yeah, a maybe draft pick is a great way to put it.
It should have been a sandwich to be considered later.
Yeah, concession stand.
It could be a ham sandwich.
Concession stand hot dog. Too bad the NFL doesn't do players to be named later.
That's why it's a sandwich to be named later.
Right. I guess that's kind of what draft picks are. There
you go. Because you can't trade draft picks in the major leagues.
Yeah, you can. They just don't do it that often.
Yeah. That actually happened with the Twins when they traded Phil Hughes away. They traded their 74th pick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, it does happen.
It just doesn't happen that often because the development curve in baseball is so much larger.
All right. Well, anything else on the news other than the Hunter Henry news? It wasn't that much this week.
Nope.
No, it's quiet.
All right. Let's get into the main segment, Dynasty Buys.
Dynasty Buys.
It's like a U2 song. It's got the same U2 intro.
Kind of was like a U2 song. I was thinking like an 80s action movie where they're getting ready to walk into the big fight scene.
I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe the they've just assembled scene and they're like walking out together.
Yep, that type of thing. That's what I pictured.
All right, so for Dynasty Buys, because as we mentioned in our Fantasy Fallacies episode, we're always going to try to define our terms. These are players who you can buy for a cheaper price today than we're projecting them to be in the future. So these are guys we're expecting to rise in value. So either they could be a flip candidate for you, or they're going to become a more valuable piece on your team now than what you're going to have to pay up currently to get them. And I'm going to ask the guys here if they can try to project when they think the price is going to increase and what will cause that. But if you guys or if they're just going to return value in some other way. So we're each going to do 5 players. We're going to do a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Then each of us got a flex where we can double up on one position. So we're cutting a position out from what we did last week to try to keep the time down a little bit.
Yep.
So starting off with quarterbacks, Hopper, you've got Jameis Winston, show favorite.
Yeah, Jameis Winston is a show favorite, and we might be the only show that he's a favorite of.
Right.
Everybody's down on Jameis Winston, which is why I love him as a buy, but he was a QB1 after he returned from injury last year. He's got a ton of weapons. You've got Chris Godwin, who has quote-unquote earned the right to start. You've got Mike Evans that's still there. You've got 2 really good tight ends. They just brought in Justin Watson. Humphreys is still there and is proven reliable when they need to use him. They brought in Ronald Jones. Like, he is ripe with talent around him. They did add some O-line pieces as well, which was kind of one of their biggest offensive problems last year was the offensive line. I believe they took Alex Kappa, who is an absolute mauler at the guard position. He's actually been trending up also, and people don't realize this. People don't realize he's a QB1 after he came back from injury, but his yards per game, completion percentage, both trending the right way. He was 6th in money throws. Jameis Winston might be the most underrated quarterback that is out there right now. He's still only going into his 4th year. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that, with the price so low on him, I'm absolutely trying to buy him. And I think that as this season goes on, as he gets a full, you hope he stays healthy, which hasn't really been an issue for him. But
the shoulder injury was the only time that it was an issue.
Yep, and that he keeps trending that way. And I think that he's a solid kind of mid-tier QB1, honestly, going forward. And I think that as the season wears on, you're going to see that value rise. And when you get to about mid-season, he's probably going to be worth at least market value, if not, priced out.
Yep. Yeah. And people forget he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
He's 2 years younger than Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going significantly higher than him in trades right now.
Yep. Which is wrong.
I 100% agree with the Jameis Winston stamp. People just seem to forget how young he is and how he's been a top producer so far in this point in his career. And people are just expecting too much out of quarterbacks too quickly. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy who's shown progress every year. And the thing I love the most is his interception rate went way down this last year.
It did. And his interceptable passes and danger throws were down year over year also. Yep.
So you can tell he is still developing. So as long as we see that development curve, he's a growing asset.
Yep. And the Bucs had one of the worst offensive lines. And he was getting sacked right, left, and all over the place. The fact that they added Kappa, I believe they added somebody in free agency, votes well for them. They can continue to improve that offensive line. This offense is going to be a force.
Yeah, and if they can get a more dynamic running game to try to keep some of the pass rushers at bay too, would also help.
Yep. So that's where Ronald Jones comes into play.
All right. Dan?
Mitchell Trubisky. So I've been pretty high on the Bears offense. That's been pretty noted. You have a Bears fan here. I think he can contest to that hype. But Trubisky's going to, there's one major no. He's going to get the Goff and Wentz type of treatment that they got last year. I don't want to drive that point home. But the Bears are building around him. They're giving him weapons. They bring in Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton. They draft Anthony Miller, show favorite. They drafted another offensive lineman to shore up the offensive line if they had any issues there. They also bring in Matt Nagy, who had a pretty good track record there, out there in Kansas City. He got 3 Pro Bowl seasons out of 5 years out of Alex Smith. They also got Smith, to produce his career year last year in yards, completions, attempts, touchdowns, and interceptions. Smith is obviously a different quarterback than Trubisky right now at this point, but he got a career year out of a 33-year-old quarterback. You get Trubisky, who had a somewhat forgettable rookie season.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. Great, but
it wasn't him. It was the offense. It was the coaching staff. They didn't put anything around him. And the fact that I think right now he's a bottom 10, not bottom 10. He's in that 15 to 20 range. And then, as a dynasty quarterback in his rankings, he's a perfect buy because he could take that massive leap. We saw it with Goff and we saw it with Wentz last year.
Yep, and I think he does. And the biggest note I had on him was supporting cast. They helped the offensive line. They put weapons around him. The defense is good if they can get the offense to stay.
Like if he starts out hot,
they're going to be in games.
The NFC North is a tough division. Hopper and I talked about this and the Bears defense and now and all that and things like that. This is going to be a tough division. But he gets a softer schedule than the other teams in there because they finish as the worst team. They also play against the NFC West, who's trending downwards with Seattle having a worse defense. They also get the AFC East, which outside of New
Outside
England,
of New England, yeah,
the defenses
they're
are
terrible.
better there, but they're going to be winnable games. And I think you're going to see a huge rise in him. And I think his value is going to continue to increase as the season comes near. And then as you enter the season, I think he's going to be a lot tougher to buy then.
Yeah, Trubisky, I definitely agree is a buy. I am starting to see some people put him up in the top 12 to 15 quarterback range. So his value is starting to
It's already
rise
starting.
up. But if the person who owns him currently doesn't believe in him yet, I would definitely go shake that tree and see if he falls out.
Or just as a throw-in piece. I know it's tough to say a throw-in piece when a guy like Trubisky, when you draft him last year, you obviously draft him as your future potentially, but you can still have him as a throw-in piece.
But he's probably a third or fourth round pick last year in most rookie drafts.
Yeah.
He didn't go that high.
He's a third. Yeah.
Yep.
So he's definitely a player you can go out and probably get for reasonably cheap as part of a larger deal. If you're trying to buy him specifically, that might be a little trickier.
You'll have to pay more probably, but in terms of package deals, it's worth it.
All right. And then I'm going for the ultimate throw-in quarterback here, which is Blake Bortles. I started looking at quarterback lists on people's trade values and just trying to get a feel for the market and who was undervalued for where I thought they should go. And then I kept seeing Blake Bortles down in like the 20s or even one on the Fantasy Pros list. He was at 30.
He doesn't.
I love this.
And
No one believes in him.
I believe in him.
He's on a bridge deal, so you should get at least 2 more seasons out of him. His worst finish in the last 3 years is 13th.
Yeah.
He runs the football, so you're going to get some rushing upside and a couple rushing touchdowns a year to help keep his floor safe. He throws the ball enough to be valuable. I don't think he's ever going to be number 3 again like he was in 2015. That was kind of a special garbage time Allen Robinson crazy show.
Special garbage time.
Special garbage
But
time.
I can see him being a back end 1 to a mid 2, and that's definitely worth the price you're going to pay on a guy who, if by that value, is going to barely be rostered in most leagues.
He's great insurance. I mean, even if you have your good number 1 quarterback, guys get injured, and if you're a championship team looking to keep that ball rolling, if you lose your quarterback, i.e. when you lost Rodgers or Wentz last year, or Watson even, you can bring in a guy like Bortles. You can have that trust. He was one of the better, if not the best QB during the fantasy playoffs last year. So he's worth it.
There are 2 quarterbacks that have averaged 500 pass attempts in total to over 1,400 rushing yards since 2014, which is Bortles' first year in the league. It's him and Russell Wilson. That's it. He's thrown it more than Cam Newton. Rushing-wise, he's right up there with him. People don't realize what type of rushing floor Blake Bortles gives you. 68% true completion percentage, which pulls out drops and throwaways. So that puts him at least a lot better than what the 62% would suggest. And yeah, like Nick mentioned, he's on a bridge deal. So you're going to get a solid backup who may or may not be the future in Jacksonville, but he's going to land someplace. He could be a journeyman bridge quarterback. He could end up with multiple teams, but he's producing at least a solid floor level.
Yeah, this is not an endorsement of him as being a dynamic NFL quarterback who I think is going to lock this job down for the long term. But as a fantasy producer, he's been really good, and people seem to just forget that NFL quality quarterback does not necessarily equal fantasy production. Those are 2 very different things.
Well, like
We've talked about it with Dak Prescott a lot.
Yeah, where he looks real ugly, but he's still putting up QB1 numbers.
When you're, when you're in a buy window, you're not obviously, you want to project out 2 to 3 years, but during the season, you're looking for that fix now.
Yeah, if I have a situation where I have a locked and loaded starter, so say I have a Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, somebody who's basically going to be my locked and loaded starter, Bortles would be the ideal guy to put behind him because I can get him for dirt cheap, and if anything happens to my main guy, I'll be okay.
Yep.
It may not be pretty, but I'll be fine. I won't be panicking.
It's not pretty, but it's effective.
I won't be panicking and trying to start Josh Allen or something like that.
Right.
All right. Moving on to running back, since none of us did our flex on the quarterback position. I'm the one who actually has 2 here, so I'm going to kick this one off with Duke Johnson. He's finished top 24 in 2 of the last 3 seasons in standard. He's finished top 24 in all 3 seasons in half or full point PPR. He's had 1 year as a top 12 finish last year in full point PPR. He's playing for a contract this year. And I think he's going to land somewhere where he's got a better opportunity than he currently has in Cleveland. So he could be a riser a la Jerick McKinnon in 2019.
He could be. And the one thing I like about him in Cleveland is I think he has a solidified role. I think Chubb and Hyde are going to eat into each other, but I think that Duke Johnson has a pretty solidified role. Like you mentioned, he's a free agent after this season. He's consistently near the top of the league in juke rate, evaded tackles, and yards per touch as a receiving back. There's not really anybody that shows better than what Duke Johnson does. So he's a guy that, you don't get him to be your RB1, maybe even your RB2. He's a guy that you plug into your flex week to week, especially in PPR formats, but he's always produced, and I think he does land in a place where he has a more solidified role. And honestly, he's not been bad as a rusher. So I like the McKinnon comparison because I'd be super interested to see what he does if he gets a little bit more work on the ground as well.
You guys hit on all the points. That's perfect.
Yeah, he's a name. He's not cheap, but he's definitely a guy who
he's going to be worth a hell of a lot more next season.
Yeah, he's a grab him now before people remember that he's a free agent next year and hold him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because then you can either flip him or he'll land in a situation where you want to keep him and he's actually a possible every week starter for you.
Yep.
All right, Dan, you're up next with the next running back.
So speaking of a potential Jerick McKinnon type of guy, as
Same
a Duke
exact-
Johnson type of potential breakout, I picked Tevin Coleman.
Same exact thing.
Yeah, so his hype has been there since his rookie season, where it was between him and Freeman. Freeman earns that role. Coleman still produces. What he's able to do is just big plays. His opportunity is going to come, though. His contract year is up after this year. He's going to land in a job. The Falcons are not going to pay him. They just drafted Edo Smith, who's pretty much his replacement towards that. But he's got a nose for the end zone, which is why I think his upside is there. He scored 19 total touchdowns in the last 2 years. He had 8 this year, which placed him 11th in the league. He had 11 2 years ago, which placed him 9th in the league. He also has a great breakaway run rate, which is why people love talking about him. That's defined as the percentage of your carries goes for 15 yards or more. At 5.8% last year, was ranked 7th in the league. And in 2016, he was at 5.9, which was 18th in the league. Now, there is some concern with him. He could be another Lamar Miller. He's gotten more carries each and every year, and his yards per carry has gone down with that. He started off with, I think, 86 carries year one, his rookie year. He had a 4.5 yards per carry. 2016, that bumped up to, I think, 116, somewhere around there. Bumped down just to a 4.4. This year, though, he had 184 carries, 4 yards per carry. So there is some concern if he's more of a guy who needs less to do more, and then if he gets that number one role, you may see that efficiency drop.
The efficiency numbers weren't great this year, but then I remember who his offensive coordinator is.
True.
And I don't. Part of that's definitely Sarkisian.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying it's not it's one note to caution on, but I still love Tevin Coleman, and I think he's going to earn a role. Mm-hmm. It's his work in the receiving game is where people really like him. Just like Duke Johnson and Jerick McKinnon, you're going to get that pass catching upside to be a good flex option and potentially RB2 if he lands in an offense that needs an RB1, just like the Niners did with McKinnon.
Yep. Yeah, I was just spinning off of that a little bit. Just to kind of justify the efficiency numbers by the fact that Steve Sarkisian's terrible. Also, anytime I can talk about Steve Sarkisian being terrible, I like to do it.
Yeah, you pretty much jump on
I like
that
to throw in
clockwork.
Atlanta players just so you can hate on them. Because we share the same
hate
hate.
him.
So the only other note I'd add on him is even if his efficiency numbers aren't great this year, the hype should be building around free agency next year, and that should be an ideal flip time if you decide you don't want to hold after that point.
Especially if he lands in an offense that needs an RB1, it's going to be just like McKinnon, and that that's going to only rise if they if he survives the draft like McKinnon did.
Yep. So I definitely agree with Coleman there. Hopper, who do you have for your running back?
We got Joe Mixon. Mixon's a guy who did not have a very impressive rookie season. He flashed a little bit. Didn't really ever put it all together, though. Part of that's Marvin Lewis. Part of that was the clusterfuck that involved Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard. But
offensive line.
And that offensive line, right. But you've got a new center and tackle to help solidify the line. There's no Jeremy Hill. Gio's gone after this season. He was 13. Joe Mixon was 13th in yards created per carry. He's got undeniable athletic talent. I think he's going to get more of an opportunity this year. I think he flashes more this year. Yeah, he's still in a Marvin Lewis offense, so you temper that a little bit. But if people are going to be low on him because he was a top 4 rookie running back taken last year. And he didn't produce like it. So you're going to find people that are low on him. So you go buy him now, because I think by the end of this season, even if he doesn't put it all together, he's going to have shown more, and that hype is going to be building, and the price is going to start to rise. So Joe Mixon is a guy that either you make a focal point and try to get him, especially if you're on a rebuilding team that's a year or two away from contending, or you try to get him as a throw-in because his value should be low enough to do it.
It depends on who you're looking at. A lot of the people who own him are already Mixon truthers, so you may not be able to pry him away.
It's a true story.
But if the person isn't completely sold on him and he's kind of dangling him out there a little bit, I would definitely make a run and try to pick him up, because I've got him as my running back 9 in my dynasty rankings. And I don't think I'm that crazy for saying so. You guys are probably pretty close there.
Yeah, I'd put him around there.
He's kind of right in that Cook tier, I'd say.
Yeah, because he's got all the talent. He hasn't flashed it yet, and neither did Cook for different reasons. But the talent's definitely there. The draft capital is there, and you can't write a guy off after one season. There's a learning curve in the NFL. It does take some time, especially on a team like the Bengals, where the offensive line was god awful.
Yep, and we've seen them do things to address it this offseason, so theoretically it should be better.
Yep.
Theoretically.
You hope.
I've got one more running back to talk about, and that is Lamar Miller. This is not a sexy option.
This is a ticking time bomb.
It is a ticking time bomb, but he's got 3 straight top 20 seasons. They're very ugly seasons.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people,
pretty, but they're effective.
A lot of people still seem to believe in Foreman, though, who's coming off an Achilles injury. The recovery rate is terrible for running backs, as in non-existent. No running back has come back and put up significant work coming off an Achilles tear before. Even if players do come back, they tend to take 2 to 3 years to fully regain their power and speed that they had before they tore the Achilles. So it's a long recovery process. I think Foreman is basically MIA in 2018.
Levon Coleman.
Could be Levon Coleman, yes.
That's where I'm going with
I don't
this.
even like him, though.
And I've seen Miller being traded for late second-round picks.
Yeah.
He's going to be way more valuable than running back 9 in this draft class. So once you're out of those early second-round picks and you're through Gesicki and then those couple receivers there like Pettis, Miller, Gallup that you can get in the top of the second round, I would gladly trade like 205, 206 for Miller.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be an okay running back 2 or a fantastic running back 3 on any contending team.
Yeah, you did a good job of justifying that, because I hear Lamar Miller and I just instantly want to throw up.
Yeah, for me, this is the prices I've been seeing on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, like, you may not even like a
That's-
player, but if he's worth the price, and then if he does flash, you sell him.
Because we were on team, we hate Miller, and now it's like, oh, hey, you guys have gone too far. Let's pull this back a little bit.
I do hate Miller. His efficiency is terrible, but he is oddly good against stacked fronts. I will give him that. He's a good between the tackles guy, but his efficiency numbers are terrible. 31st in yards created, 56th in juke rate. He's got one season over 75 yards a game. That was when he was getting 19 touches a game, which could happen again this year, honestly, given what isn't there. 3 seasons at 4.0 yards per attempt or less, and it's trending down. So there's a lot to not like here, but he's kind of like a guy we'll talk about on Wednesday as to where he's a volume play.
Yeah, and
I
then,
agree.
And then on top of it, Watson's going to be back, and he did look better with Watson under center.
We'll get to Watson later too.
It wasn't great, but
Yeah.
he did look better.
He's worth the price that he's going for. I agree with you.
absolutely.
I
agree with you
I
there.
agree with that, and I agree with the way that you justified it. I hate the player. It makes me want to puke, but it's one of the. It's kind of like a Frank Gore play, to where it's not sexy, but it's solid if you need it.
Yeah, it's just like, look, I need a 3rd or 4th running back, and I've got a second.
It's like Bud Light.
It's 2:30
It does the job.
a.m. and you're
It-
looking to bring somebody home.
Yeah,
It's effective.
it's like Bud Light. It ain't sexy, but
I
if
mean-
you need it, it's there.
I know that all too well.
Thank you, Anheuser-Busch, for the sponsorship.
Right.
All right. I think that's it for running backs. Let's move on to a beer review.
Already? Wow, we are moving along. It caught me off guard there.
Beer review.
All right. What did you guys think of Legal Draft Beer Company Smash and Grab IPA? Dan, I'll let you go since Hopper's getting a call.
It's good. Like, I don't dislike it. There's something that jumps out to me. I don't do well with these beer reviews. I'm not as well versed as our main listeners know, and especially Nick and Chris know. But if it's a hot summer day, it's not too strong. It's very drinkable. It's just I think it's a good IPA.
I'm liking the trend of less kick you in the teeth style IPAs that we've been seeing
Yeah.
here. IPAs in general have gotten significantly less hoppy since we started doing the show, and it's only been a little over a year. Most of the IPAs we drink now are minor on the bitterness, but very heavy hop flavor. And that's what this IPA is. It's a very refreshing IPA. It definitely feels like it comes in as a lower alcohol percent 1.2, and it comes in at 6.1%, so that makes sense. But overall, very refreshing, great for a hot day, so works great in the studio right now where it's starting to heat up a little bit.
It's good. Hot takes.
It's good. Dan,
It's good.
You're going to Dan review it?
Yeah, Dan had to take my spot because I got called right there, so he got to do a full review.
I didn't
this
do your
time.
spot as well.
So I'll take Dan's spot. Do you want me to do my spot?
I mean, if you...
Should I do my spot?
It wasn't.
anything
It
else
was
you
a
got
little
to add?
bit better than what Dan normally does.
Yeah,
but-
it was
It
better.
was.
It was better than I agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you guys just say it all.
It starts off clean and crisp. The citra hops really kick in kind of in the middle. You get a nice citrusy flavor there. Rolls off a little bit of hoppy bitterness, kind of dries out at the end. So, yep, there you go.
But yeah, it's. I mean,
I love it.
if you're looking
Efficient.
for a bright, heavy citrus IPA, this is a great option. And it's almost. You can tell it's West Coast, but it's almost got a little bit of that New England juice style to it.
Yep.
All right, moving on to wide receivers.
Yep.
Dan, do you want to kick us off with one of your two?
We'll go with Chris Godwin. He was my number one here. He was a show favorite last year when we were doing our rookie previews for the wide receivers. He was a little bit buried on the depth chart. Evans, Jackson, Humphreys, Bryant. They drafted, first round pick on Howard. A little bit buried, so his name is kind of, trickled down with all the new rising rookies. But he's still a favorite among the advanced metric crowd. If you go to his player profile on playerprofiler.com, he's got a very respectable college dominator rating of 34.9, 68th percentile, a pretty damn good breakout age of 19.5, 77th percentile. He has a great speed score. He's got a well above average agility and burst score and a decent catch radius. And he's going to be in an offense which is going to be high volume, and it's going to be there. We don't believe in coach speak in May, but we don't want to just brush aside all the positive talk that's been coming out on him as him being the now number two, probably taking over Jackson's role, maybe even pushing aside Adam Humphreys even more to the point where he gets dropped. His value is just great, and I think he showed it last year when he had his opportunities. I think he has a great chance to be this guy where he may not struggle, or he may have a somewhat downer year because Jackson probably won't be cut until next year when he's cut for no dead cap loss. But even then, you can get a great flex play for this year who could end up being a great number two receiver in a high-powered offense.
Yeah, he's a second-year player. His quote-unquote earned the right to start. But you mentioned that when he was given his opportunities to produce, and he did. When he ran more than 15 routes in a game, he averaged 4.2 receptions, 72.6 yards, and a touchdown. So
that's you'll take those numbers
you'll
any
take
day.
that as a wide receiver 2 or 3 on your team any day.
Easily.
He was 9th in yards per target, 8th in yards per pass route with a solid contested catch rate. When he got the opportunity, he made the most of it, which means in the NFL typically that you've earned more playing time, you've earned more targets, you've earned more time to show what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, all you can ask from first and second year receivers, especially when they're kind of blocked on the depth chart like he is when you get snaps, show me something. And Godwin absolutely did that last year, and I expect that to continue. He may not be startable for you in 2018, but things should continue trending upward for him.
Yep. I think he's a great dart throw flex play, in redraft leagues this year. I think his name is going to be one of the higher trending rising names in 2019 though.
Yeah, he's a buy-in dynasty, but in redraft, when you get into the later rounds, we always talk about dart throw wide receivers and who's a guy that could break out or that could benefit from an injury or something like that. And Godwin's at the top of that list this year.
Oh man, if something happened to Evans, Godwin's name would explode.
Yep.
I mean, look at what he did against New Orleans last year. I know it was week 17, but he posted it against a very good secondary, 7 receptions, 111 yards and a touchdown against a very dominant secondary.
Yep.
And is that type of flashes upside is what you want to see from a guy right now.
All right. Hopper, you also have a second-year receiver on the top of your board.
I sure do. I got one that is actually kind of poor man's Chris Godwin. It's Amari. It's Amari Darboh. Athletically, they profile about the same, believe it or not. Godwin's not quite as big as Darboh is, but Darboh looked very solid in very limited work last year, but Paul Richardson's gone. We've talked about a potential Tyler Lockett breakout for what, 2-3 years now? That's never happened.
Gotta stay healthy.
And coming out of college, Darbo's a guy that looked like he was a really solid route runner with good hands that projected as a wide receiver 2 or 3. So Darbo's kind of a dark horse that some people are talking about in the deeper parts of the fantasy community that I think you're going to start to see some hype build on with Paul Richardson not there, especially if, playing outside with Baldwin there to where he's going to draw less coverage. He's a very similar type of receiver to what Baldwin is.
Yep, and then Baldwin's getting older, so his window may be closing here in the next year or two as he starts getting into his early 30s here.
Yeah, he's 31 now, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, the clock's ticking on his career here. They need somebody to take over. It doesn't look like it is going to be Lockett because he can never stay healthy. And I don't believe in Jerron Brown.
No, I don't either. And they shipped off Paul Richardson. So at worst, he's the third option on this team because they didn't do anything to address the tight end position either once Graham left town.
And there's one more point we're missing. There's 200 targets missing. You get
between Richardson
as we keep missing. Paul Richardson's gone. Jimmy Graham's gone. And Luke Wilson, he's got to, not say those 2 L's.
With 2 L's.
Big shout out to Mike right there for all that good stuff. There's 200 or so targets missing there. They're not all going to go to Doug Baldwin. You'll probably see an uptake of around 20 to 30, 30 to 40.
I mean, if he
he had a lot of targets last year.
If he gets more than additional 20, that'd be nuts.
And they didn't really focus on the defense. They did a little bit, but it seems to be in really one position group. So this defense is going to obviously struggle. Wilson's going to still run for his life, and Darbo's
because they did nothing to address the offensive line. But.
So yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot there. And, if he can continue to produce or at least show flashes, and then eventually take over Lockett when he, inevitably gets hurt.
Yep.
Upside.
All right, so I'm going to go into my receiver here, and if you guys probably noticed a pattern in my buys, I did a lot of players that we've talked a lot of shit on before. Who do
you did? I also noticed a lot of correlations between your buys and sells.
Yes, there is too. So Brandon Cooks is the one I wanted to throw here on a sell or a buy. He's basically in a situation now where people are starting to get a little nervous because he's now on his 3rd team in 3 years. But it's going to be his 3rd good offense in 3 years. He's had 3 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards, over 70 catches, and at least 7 touchdowns. So it doesn't seem to matter for him. He still produces. Going from Brady to Goff is definitely a downgrade, but it looks like they have a plan for him, and they actually got him in early enough in the offseason with this trade where he actually gets time to learn the playbook, unlike Sammy Watkins. In addition, I just don't like how far he's starting to slip in startup drafts now. I'm seeing him go in the late 3rd, early 4th round of startups behind guys like Stephon Diggs, Rodgers, Wentz for quarterbacks. I would definitely take him over those type of players. And even guys like maybe even Devonta Freeman or Corey Davis, I would still take Brandon Cooks over. He's still only 24 years old, won't turn 25 until midseason. And he's already got 3,000-yard seasons under his belt.
So this is probably the first thing we come to on this list that I don't necessarily agree with, and the fit is what scares me. And you can say what you will about the Sammy Watkins role, but here's the numbers behind it. Cooks is 4th in air yards, 6th in target distance. And we talk about Cooks as a deep threat. Yes, he wasn't as boom and bust, but he still made his living down the field last year. Goff was 19th in pass attempt distance, 18th in air yards, 13th in deep ball completion, 21st in air yards per attempt, and his longest throw is 36 yards. So unless there's a philosophy change or they're going to try to do something different with Brandon Cooks, this fit scares me because the type of receiver Cooks doesn't fit in at least to what we saw last year, which I think is why Sammy Watkins also struggled in this offense. So that's my cause for concern. I can see the argument to have Cooks as a buy. To me, he's more of a hold, but I get it.
I couldn't find a name I really wanted to plant a flag on as a wide receiver buy, outside of a couple guys that I've hyped on significantly, like Godwin.
Yeah.
Which
I had that same problem. So,
but Cooks was one I looked at. Went, he's starting to slide down lists, and I thought he should have been more stable, even with the trade.
And this is where you get into different owners, philosophy and different values between different owners. Where a guy like Brandon Cooks, who continues to slide, I think his slide is starting to kind of, level off a little bit. But if you feel like you can get him as a steal, by all means, go out there and try to get him. Like, if you still believe in him, he's getting a lot of hype, on that great coach speak there in May right now. If you've seen the videos of Sean McVay completely gushing over him like a 16-year-old girl in high school. There is some upside to this. As Nick alluded to, he at least has a full offseason to learn the offense. I'm interested to see what they want to do with him. I'm like on Hopper here though. There's a lot of mouths to feed here, and he already bitched he's already bitched in his career about not getting enough targets, and he goes to a team that is more of a run focused team.
Yep.
And
I do expect them to ask Goff to do more this year to try to limit Gurley's touches slightly.
I do too.
I think they do too. My only pause for concern was the way that they operated this offense last year when they had a legitimate deep threat, and then you look at those downfield numbers for Goff and where Cooks makes his living. So he's going to have to show some improvement there, or the offensive philosophy is going to have to change a little bit to fit Cooks. But you hear me make fun of it all the time. There's no coordinator or head coach that's like, well, I've got this really good player, but I'm not just going to change my offense to utilize that good player to the best of their ability. Nobody does that. So I would expect it to kind of balance out in the middle, but to me, that's why I said like he's a hold. And you even said that this is kind of more of a kind of you slightly sliding so I can see it, even though you aren't necessarily in love with the flag plant. So I get it.
Yeah, he's a player I've definitely, every single league I've gone in, and as I've seen people starting to slide his value, I've at least kicked the tires a little bit and been
As
like,
you
hey,
should.
Yeah.
hey, what are you thinking about Cooks right now? Or
smart.
I'll be like, hey, I'll throw out 5 names that I'm kind of looking at on their team, with Cooks being the one I'm really taking a close look at, being like, maybe you're down on Cooks after all this. And even the thing is, even if he doesn't end up working out in LA and they don't bring him back after the season, it'd be nuts that they've traded multiple early picks to try to bring in these receivers and not sign one. But he's going to go and he's going to get paid somewhere. So his value's not going to drop.
And he might not anyways. I mean, have you seen what the Rams have put together? Who the fuck are they going to pay next year?
Yeah.
I mean, they still have to worry about...
Yeah, he could succeed and still walk.
There's, Gurley's contract, Goff's contract, depending on, if they want to, keep Woods longer, Kupp. Cooks made...
Still got a couple of years on Goff, though. He was a first-round pick. They'll have the 5th-year option. So
if they don't decide to go with the early one,
they'll clean some money out on defense by then, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just a guy who I don't see a scenario where his value drops, and I think I see quite a few where he could bump back up just given his age and production profile.
Yeah.
All right. Dan, moving on to your second receiver.
So I'm going to go with another decisive player that I'm sure he's going to make Hopper puke.
Divisive?
Divisive.
He's good at making decisions. And it will make me puke because I hate this one more than I hated Lamar Miller.
But just like Lamar Miller, Des Bryant's value is completely tanked at this point.
For good reasons.
Sure. But there's still a lot of upside that comes to him. He's not even 30 years old yet. People complain about his age.
He will be this season.
At some point this season. But either
November
way.
8th.
8th, is it?
I looked it up.
Did you? I think he still has a chance to be a decent receiver in this league. I mentioned before last week when we talked about him and his value, there's been reports of him trying to slim down. There's been reports of him working on his route running. He wants to become a Fitzgerald type, or at least do something to prolong his career longer. You also look at what he had with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Him and Dak couldn't really develop the chemistry that they wanted. The offense has shifted to more run focus. He doesn't have a gunslinger type of quarterback. I get it though. He hasn't landed on a team yet, but his value is completely tanked. And I think where he lands, he will still command red zone opportunity. He's shown that.
Well, buy him from Sean. I'm sure he'll sell him to you.
Sean is still super high on him. So, but I've tried kicking the tires on other leagues that have him. Like I said, I'm not even that huge on him. I just like what his value is in terms of what you can buy him for. And if he does blow up, then you ship him off because someone's going to buy him based on name value.
I mean, are they? The
No.
market for him has gotten real tepid.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's not even an NFL market for him. He doesn't have a team yet. Like you mentioned, he's going to turn 30 this season. His last 3 seasons have been absolutely terrible. Yeah, I know he was hurt in 2015. Still would have been bad, though. 60 for 806. That was his last Romo season, by the way.
Yeah, he's... With the complete dried up NFL market, I'm worried he's going to land in a really bad situation, and then everything is just going to spiral out of control. And we just haven't seen him produce for the last few seasons. So he's a guy that I think he's a falling knife, and you just don't try to catch a falling knife.
I get that. And like I said, my whole platform for this is what his value is at this point. Like you said with Lamar Miller, I mean, I know that he's an average opportunity, but even if you don't like a player, and if you can get, some dirt cheap value on him, if you don't like him and he blows up, you trade him. You get more value in return for him.
Yeah, he's kind of an ideal, like, I'm going to try to flip him, and I hope that this lands in a good situation. But, man, you got to be giving up very little buying him.
Well, have you heard some of the things that he's gone for? Third-round picks?
Okay, yeah. If someone's going to sell him for a third, I've seen trades from, the guys from the Ballers when they talked about their buy lows, at the beginning of this offseason when Dez was still on Dallas. He was going for a third-round pick. And some fucking, chump change quarterbacks. I mean,
it's like, if I can get that value for a guy like Dez, where someone out there, your leagues you're in are not just dynasty experts. You're going to have, casualish type of players.
I mean, that may very well be true. I'm just saying I've not seen that type of market.
But
those trades may have happened. Yeah. But
like I said, it's more or less where I think his value has gotten to a point where it's okay for me to take that chance.
Because I think most owners are going to have the mindset of, I'm not going to sell him for less than X, where X is probably like an early second round pick.
And then that's it. So like I said,
that's my more issue with
degree of level of difficulty here, but that's just me.
This is why I hated him for the last episode too, is because the fact that he's unsigned just makes him such an unknown anyway that it's kind of obvious that he could be a great buy, or he could be a great sell, or he could be a great who the fuck knows.
He was
why we talk about it.
90th in separation, 46% contested catch, 51.9% catch rate on a 74% catchable target. That's bad. And as far as him trying to slim down or turn into more of a Fitzgerald type of technician, I'll see it when I believe it. And that's all I got to say.
I know.
One last receiver, Marquise Goodwin.
Okay, something I like to talk about. First off, he got paid. He was a wide receiver 12, though, after Jimmy Garoppolo became the full-time starter. Nobody was added to take this away from him. Garcon will be back, not worried about it. Catch rate and yards per reception were essentially where they've been his entire career. His catch rate was low, but he was only at 67.6% catchable target rate on the season. And I think his season catch rate was 52%. It went up to 67% after Jimmy Garoppolo took over. So you look at what Goodwin did with Garoppolo. There was rapport there. He was a back-end wide receiver one when that happened. He's going for he's a throw-in piece in dynasty trades. He's going for absolutely nothing in redraft ADP. Granted, it's early. Best ball leagues, I'm getting him 7th, 8th round. I mean, he's a guy that should be one of the focal points of this offense with an accurate passing quarterback that can also work the field deep. And he essentially has no hype, no value around him, nothing.
Yeah, he's definitely starting to... I think I'm starting to see a little bit of simmer behind him, but it's not taken off yet. I think this buy window probably closes in the next 6 to 8 weeks, but as we start getting the season, people start looking at depth charts more.
Yep.
But for now, yeah, he's a buy.
Yeah, he's definitely... Get him early. Because when people start looking at this and they start seeing what he did with Jimmy Garoppolo and what he did after Garoppolo showed up, that's going to skyrocket it. The hype's going to start to build. People haven't realized it yet, so get in on it.
All right. Anything else on Goodwin?
Nope.
All right. Let's wrap it up here with the tight ends. Dan, you've got a Tennessee tight end for us.
I got something that I think Hopper will actually enjoy talking about.
This correlates directly to my sell, I guarantee you, and it was probably the guy I almost made my buy.
It's going to be Jonnu Smith.
Yep, guy I almost made my buy.
Another guy that there's a show last year we loved. We landed an opportunity in Tennessee where he's got to sit and wait behind Delanie Walker, whose contract is up after this season. I don't see them bringing him back. Excuse me. But what stands out more is his player profile. Is the fact is his dominator rating was at 33%, 91st percentile. The fucking breakout age though, can you guys 18, 100th percentile, the best you can probably get. That's why it's 100th percentile. Like it's not a
good deduction.
Good deduction, Dad. That's what I'm here for.
Well done. Thanks.
Well done.
Thanks for that hard hitting analysis, John Madden.
Right.
I'm here for more.
Yikes.
So it's not. It's almost not an if, it's a when he's in a breakout in this offense that should get better after this season as they're shifting their focus away from a smash mouth run offense to letting, Mariota open it up more in the air. And I think, with his value, the way that it is, I think he's worth a buy right now. And then you hold on until next year.
Yep.
Excuse me. Until next year.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a limb for me. I'm pretty much buying every second year tight end right now.
Yeah,
as we always
I am also. Speaking of second-year tight ends,
you can go into yours.
Michael Roberts in Detroit, So they've got Luke Wilson with 2 L's. Levine Toilolo was also added. And between the two, they've averaged 16 receptions this season. So I'm not worried about that. Michael Roberts is a second-year guy out of Toledo. You should have a shot at the move role. He's 6'4", 270. He's not going to blow you away athletically, but he's the best they got right now as a move tight end. There's been a little bit of hype, a little bit of ranting and raving about him, but look, Toilolo, Wilson, they're not, we know what they are. They're blockers. We saw it in Atlanta. We saw it in Seattle. Yeah. And Michael Roberts is going to come in with the inside job with the Ebron role here. And you have to pay attention to that.
And on top of it, Roberts was a really good blocker in college, so it's not like the blockers are necessarily going to keep him off the field if he can figure out how to run routes and be an NFL tight end.
Yep.
So basically, all we saw him do in college was block and catch touchdowns.
He's like Bubba Franks.
Yep. So yeah, he's if he can get it together, he is a fantastic buy because that depth chart might be the worst tight end depth chart in the NFL.
And he's a throw-in piece. I mean, you could probably
if he's rostered.
If he's rostered, he may be a pickup.
Yeah, this may be a free buy.
Yep.
All right. Now, speaking of Eric Ebron, that is the guy I threw on here just because his value has tanked significantly. But he lands on a Colts offense where they have supported 2 tight ends in the past. If we go back to the Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen days. And then on top of it, Ebron, I think, is just a better overall athletic tight end than Jack Doyle. So if they really get that offense going, especially with the lack of receiver weapons they have going on now, he may end up being the number 2 downfield threat on that offense. As long as, this is contingent on everything Colts related, as long as we get Andrew Luck back.
Yeah.
But as long as we do, I like him there. And Doyle could be cut after this season if Ebron gets it together, and he may find himself in the tight end 1 situation.
Yeah, it's a fresh start for Ebron, which, normally I'm not a fan of change of scenery, but he definitely needed one. So you hope that they at least believe in him a little bit. And you have seen Luck support 2 tight ends. He did it with Doyle and Allen and Fleener before that. So both of them could end up having some value in a split role. It's a good flyer by the Colts, and even you could see some 2 tight end sets because even if you got T.Y. Hilton, clustered fuck at wide receiver 2, and nothing really defined in the running back game. This is just a team that needs to find a way to get weapons on the field for their franchise quarterback, assuming he's back, and Ebron's a good weapon.
And on top of it, having him and Doyle on the line should give Andrew Luck a little bit more protection too. So they may be looking to run more 2 tight end sets just to try to keep that blocking game intact because they worked on the inside. Those tackles are still not great though.
Right.
So, and he's going 22 right now in some trade value lists for tight end. There are not 21 tight ends I would take over Eric Ebron as a 25-year-old.
No, there's maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah, he should be closer to the 10 to 15 range.
Yep.
So he's definitely too low. And I think people are just so sick of Eric Ebron that he's the type of player that you can kind of just be like, I will take that problem off your roster.
Thank you.
Yep. Give it to me.
Yep. So that's all we got for the Dynasty buys. We didn't want to have this episode go too long. If you want to ask about any other players we're considering, message us on, or I should say tweet at us on Twitter, comment here on the video on YouTube. Those are 2 great places to ask questions. If you want more clarification on any of our buys, put comments on the YouTube video. I like having discussions on there with people because other people can jump in and join us for that. So we had a lot of fun with a long CMC related chat in the last one, which I saw that we're bringing him up in the Cell episode. It is a bit of a preview. So
I did not read those comments. Am I going to get grilled for that?
We got grilled real hard on. One of you 2 called him there's no way he can be a 3-down back. So I think that may have been both of you.
Oh no, that was definitely me.
So yeah, we got grilled.
My whole thing was saying
I don't think he'll hold up as a 3-down back, but we'll get into that next episode.
Yeah. We'll talk about it then.
So please keep giving those comments. As always, like and subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to build that up, and that's a platform where we're trying to continue building momentum. Thank you again for getting us over 100 views in the last episode. If you listen to us on iTunes, drop us a review if you can. Keep subscribing there to bump us up on the search engine so we show up higher when people search for fantasy football. Anything else we want to shout out before we do the main handles?
Nope.
All right.
We got merch. Hats.
Yep,
shirts.
we do have merch. We got the throwback and the new hat there going on Hopper, so he's repping the logo.
We're going to be down in Fort Worth. We're going to be down in Fort Worth,
Texas.
Wow,
close to Dallas.
I am so not on the game today.
You are not.
And we may be bringing merch with us to actually have at the show. Actually, we may just have it to send it to them. I'm not sure.
Did they ever email you about that?
I was going to follow up after Memorial Day
we'll
weekend.
talk about that, Alvar.
And then in addition, follow us on Instagram, BeerfieldFF, Facebook, Beerfield Fantasy Football. Twitter is BeerfieldFF as well, our main platform to reach out to us. And if you want to subscribe to the Dynasty League, make sure to send those submissions to beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com.
Or Nick's DM.
Or Nick's DM.
Which is the Twitter DM.
Individually, I'm at Nick Sparts. Across the table from me is Dan Thury.
At ThuryBFF.
And to my left is Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps.
Hopefully he doesn't have to run out so much on next episode.
Not looking promising.
All right, we'll catch you guys
Next time
on Beerfield Fantasy Football with some Dynasty Sells.
See ya.
Peace.